Good afternoon and welcome to the Beaufort County Transportation Committee meeting for Wednesday, May the 17th, 2023. May we have roll call, please?
Mr. Forrest, Mr. Manning, Mr. Gordon,
Here.
Mr. Winslow,
Here.
Mr. Perry,
Here.
Mr. Backer,
Here.
Mr. Hammond,
Here.
Mr. Clarence,
Here.
Mr. Manning, but you don't lie. Here. Mr. Glover,
Here. You got Mr. Forrest too.
Mr. Forrest.
Here. I'd like to welcome Charles Perry. Welcome to our first meeting, your first meeting. He's from District 10. If you all rise, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It's customary to go around the room and introduce our members that are sitting here, and we'll start. Stephanie?
Suzanne Larson, Low Country Inside Track.
Wes Campbell, Beaufort County Engineering.
Brian?
Brian Bauer, Beaufort County Engineering. Rusty Rouse, Beaufort County Engineering.
Sierra Hall, and Mississippi.
Henry Taverner, County Council, District 6.
Eric Lawson, Beaufort County Director of Engineering.
All right, thank you much. Is there any public comment to today's agenda items? Seeing none, we're going to have approval of minutes for both the January the 18th and the March 15th meeting minutes. I would make one exception. On the March 15th, Mark McCain should not be member absent. Other than that, do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, vote if you've been to the meeting only. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Old business, we'll start off with SCDOT District Project Update. I believe we have a young lady by the name of Neva Newman on line.
Yes, sir. This is Neva Newman, the actual SPOT.
Can we get your volume turned up a little bit?
That's the highest in
Yes, sir, I can do that.
Ms. Newman, can you try to turn your volume up, please?
Yes, I'm doing that now.
Okay, thank you. Let's proceed.
Again, can you hear me better now?
We're going to close a couple doors. Close some background noise out. That's the highest it goes, Eric? Okay. All right, please proceed.
Yes, sir. This is Neva Newman, the acting RCE for SCDOT Beaufort Jasper Construction. We currently have two contracts for Beaufort Road. The Holly Hall Road, that's CMRE with 200 pounds of surface beam. Is full depth patching and surface overlay. Scott Street is full depth patching with surface overlay. Logmeyer Street, that's going to be patching and surface street. E Street has been postponed until the fall due to Beaufort Jasper water and sewer adjustments to their stormwater conveyance and adding risers. Darby Drive / Palmetto Street is patching and surface. Spectacle Street is full depth patching and surface. The contract was expected to start back up first week of June. They have currently completed Hermitage and North Hermitage with patching and surface surface overlay in Sea Island Parkway. The other contract that we have affecting the Beaufort roads, is going to be 17 from, excuse me if I say it wrong, Newmarch Plantation Drive to the Patterson County line, Lanes End. That will be surface, CMRD with surface overlay, and Island Causeway will be CMRD with surface overlay. The contractor does not look to start those routes until late summer, early fall. That does not have a completion date until November of 2024.
Is that it, Neva?
Yes, sir. That's all Beaufort Construction, Beaufort Jasper Construction has for Beaufort roads.
I fully recognize that you have had late notice on this, probably this morning, you were told. I'd like for you to work with us, and we typically would like some slides and presentations, and hopefully we can arrange for you to be at our meeting in July if you're still the resident construction engineer.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I was
Yes, I was aware you found, I got it this afternoon at 2 o'clock, so we fully understand, and I'm not going to try to go around and have questions asked on this because it's, I don't know how much everybody heard of your presentation. So if you have any slides that you could provide to us, it would be great, then we could pass them out to our committee members.
I do have a sheet that I prepared with the roads and all, and I can forward that to, do you want it just on everyone on email?
That would be fine.
Okay, I'll get that to you by the end of business today.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sorry about the connection, but as I said, she found out she was making the presentation, I think, this morning about 10 o'clock, so changing her schedule around made it very difficult. Okay, Brian, you're up next with Dirt Road Project Update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we'll start with Dirt Road 53. That's Rainbow Road, Twickenham, and Northview. We are still waiting to get DHEC permits back so we can begin construction. We're still hopeful that those permits come soon so we can start Rainbow Road this spring. Twickenham and Northview to follow probably over the summer and into the fall. I don't have a slide, but we also have Dirt Road 54 right now. We're in the contracting process. That's going to be rocking on Defusky.
Right.
So we are meeting with the contractor later on this month to go over a time frame for that. So it's probably looking like later on this fall to get those handful of roads on Defusky into next year. So
That is will be quite an endeavor because having our materials hauled in by barge, I believe you said.
yeah, the logistics of getting material there is definitely going to be the biggest challenge on that one. So, all right. So next we'll go into the year 6 resurfacing.
Yep.
So right now, the contractor has been working on DOT routes. The roads highlighted are in the green text are the roads that they have resurfaced. Those still are going to need permanent striping and to have shoulders brushed back and to have punch lists done, but they are on track. There's actually Walsh Drive West and John Street that are green. They need to go finish those up as well. But so 4 roads for the rest of the DOT contract on that. So they are looking to be done probably this month. And so we have currently invoiced about a little more than $900,000 to the contractor. The CEI has been paid a little more than $5,000. It has another outstanding invoice for about $14,000. So the rest of that for the DOT roads, I would expect to be invoiced on their May invoice and paid in June.
Any issues with DOT? Everybody smiling at DOT?
I think Brian and I have discussed a few things.
There's been a couple conversations.
Yeah, with the start points, like Oaks Plantation, starting at the intersection, and not leaving gaps in the system, starting further down the road, and then.
That was on which road?
That's Oaks Plantation.
Okay,
And I know that there's some valley gutters that are needing to be finished. I think we just stated those couple of ways to complete.
Okay, yeah, we'll look at the valley gutters, and it's just going to be better communication going forward, so.
okay.
Brian,
Yes, sir.
you know, I live on Oak Plantation Road.
Yes, sir.
You guys did a fantastic job on it so
Thank
far.
you.
anyway.
I'll pass that on to the contractor, so thank you. Preservation, the contractor was getting started with patching today. Had a conversation with them earlier, again, started a little late in the game. They are expecting to be done with the chip seal, which was scrub seal, has been changed to a chip seal, June 5th, and then they're expecting to do the fog seal after that, and then striping. So hopeful, lots going to have to go in the right direction, you know, have the weather break their way. But hoping that if they can finish up by, you know, early to mid-June, we can still potentially get that invoice in and paid by July 1, by the end of the fiscal year.
Chip seal is kind of near and dear to us at this point in time, so if you could take some pictures of that and show it at our next meeting, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir, definitely. Preservation contract is, I'm sorry, I forgot. I've been pulling together the year 7 bid package for all 3 contracts, preservation, resurfacing, and rejuvenator. This right now is going to be the year 7 preservation roads, which will be microsurfacing. These are all county roads. So with most of these are following the 5-year plan created by FNME. There have been some that have been added on to it to make a geographic sense as far as doing whole neighborhoods versus one road and bouncing around. But that is what we would intend to bid in the next program.
We're doing well. We're ahead of schedule. Typically, we have been going out in the January time span to bid for our next fiscal year. And we should be in a situation this year where we'll be able to roll out of July 30th and July 1 and start our next fiscal year, and we'll be able to get a road paving done earlier in the cycle rather than at the end of the cycle.
Yes, sir.
And financially, we have the money to do such.
So next, we'll have the rejuvenator contract. So again, roads in green. Sarah, if you want to go to the next one. Roads in green are the roads that have been completed. They have now, and they are anticipating there's 4 or 5 more roads that have been done since this was updated to include Buckham Plantation, Palmetto Business Park, Sawmill Forest. And so they should be finished with this contract in the next week or 2. So it should be done this month, and then final payment made in June for that. And so far, they've invoiced about $28,000 for that one. And then this is the year 7 rejuvenator roads. Most of these are going to be roads that were resurfaced 2 years ago, I believe.
Right.
So this is what is currently on the year 7 schedule to be bid.
Bear in mind, just as a reminder and a refresher to some of the newer members of the committee in the past, rejuvenator, or reclamite as it's technically known as, we haven't, we've had paving contractors handling it, and we were being charged anywhere from $1.50 to $1.80 a square yard. Instead of by separating it out and doing it independently, it's down to about 95 cents. So it's a major savings for us in doing that. Just makes another contract for the full-time staff to handle, but it gives us the ability to do more roads, and that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that one runs pretty quick, so they generally get in and within, 2 to 3 weeks have it knocked out. So it's pretty quick and easy. So, and that's I think the 500 and less ADT was included with the resurfacing update. So I think that's all that I have right now.
Any questions of Brian?
Hang on one. Frederica Taylor,
Yes, sir.
over in Warsaw.
Yes, sir.
What's the status on that?
So that one is not on the current 5-year program, but it is in year 1 of the next program. So I think the DeFusky roads that are going to be started later on this year, year 4, there'll be one more program after that, and then it'll be Frederica Taylor after that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
On here, you got 2 Rivers Hill Road. Is
Okay.
that a typo? One is in green and one is in white?
Probably, it should be a typo, and I believe Rivers Hill, was completed, so.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I happen to be driving on Benton Field Road this morning.
Okay.
It's in terrible shape.
Yeah, that one has a concrete plant and a
And the
bus
bus
depot.
operation, yeah.
Public Works South is there.
Yeah.
So that is, I've talked to the contractor about that. We're going to have to do some special coordination on that one to make sure that they're not, inhibiting the concrete plant or the bus depot. The road off of it, I believe it's Devonwood,
Yeah.
has speed bumps, and Palmetto Breeze has stated that their bus can't get over that. So we're going to have to work with them to be able to get that done and not, inconvenience anybody. But, so that's on the list. It's a good bit of patching right there, especially in front of the concrete plant. So that whole area is going to get patched and then get overlaid,
Good.
so,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
I mean, that's something not just that place, but I've always wondered whether you or this committee consult with the public transit people, not just on that site, but in other areas, to find out if they have any special problems or needs that are being not met.
That's not something that we have looked at. I know there are passive data collection, like what we do with our normal, every 3 years, our pavement data collection.
Yeah.
There's passive collection measures that can be put on regular fleet vehicles to measure some of that. That's not something that we have looked at. I believe there's a lot of, people can avoid a pothole. So I don't know how accurate the data actually is, but that's something that we could definitely reach out to Palmetto Breeze and see if there are any hotspots like that they're aware of.
I mean, it is a service that the whole county needs, and most of the buses, well, they pass all sorts of places, but I was just thinking that, that is something that should be looked at, because maybe it's a place where a bus can't make a turn or something else because of a pavement problem that.
Yes,
First of all, they attend the last meetings, and I've had an open dialogue with them, and they've never.
No, I
brought-
just didn't know. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
criticizing.
No,
I'm
no,
saying
no,
I
I'm not
didn't
taking it that
know.
way. No, I'm not taking it that way. I'm just elaborating to the fact that I've had an open dialogue with them, and they've never brought it up, as well as in our transportation plan, there's forms in there that they could fill out if they had issues, that they could put it down and send it to us, and we'd see that it would be serviced, whether it's with us or Public Works, and more tuned to Public Works
Yeah.
rather than us.
As I say, it just hit me when we were talking about that particular road, which, being on their board for quite a few years, I used to have to go down it once a month, and it was getting worse and worse.
yes, ma'am. Definitely in bad shape.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you. You're up, Eric.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you all?
Doing well, thank you.
Good, good. So we have some good news on the 170 near-term project. It should be out to bid next week for advertisement. So have gotten everything back from SCDOT in the way of plan review as well, or permitting, as well as the IGA to be able to resurface the ramps and 278. So again, really good news that one is moving. Another piece of that, we are doing a update to the 170 corridor plan.
Right.
So Latz had done one in 2019. We're seeing a lot in the way of redevelopment along 170, so we want to get out in front of that. So we've contracted with AECOM to do an update to that study.
And that's from the back gate of Sun City down to the traffic circle.
No, this one is actually, it's to look at that same area. We're actually extending it from Del Webb intersection, so two intersections south of the interchange,
Right.
to 462. So again, to look at that entire area and see, based upon the development that we're seeing over on the Hardyville side, Hardyville and Jasper County side, what is that next 5 years, 10 years look like as far as traffic conditions and the need for improvements along the corridor. In addition to that, we're also specifying and looking at the Oldfield intersection, and we're doing a signal warning analysis on that particular intersection right now. So again, we see a lot of congestion in and around that corridor. The 170 project will kick off here in a couple of months, and hopefully we'll see some immediate improvements, especially in and around the Argent intersection where we see a lot of backups in the mornings today. So again, that one's happening. Then we're also looking at the 278 study, which was between Argent. AECom did that study as well. It was from Argent down to the 170 interchange. That is just about done. I've tapped the brakes on that one for just the moment for them to finalize that report, because as they re-look at that 170 piece of the corridor, we also want them to take another look at 278, look at that same horizon and make sure that that's all covered.
Is that being covered by the county or by LATS?
That one, the updated study is being covered by the county. To be able to get that on the tip and be able to go through the process. There's some immediate needs now that we're seeing in the way of development. We just want to make sure that we're addressing those just as quickly as what we possibly can. So the county has taken that piece on the update.
I thought we were still doing, and Stephanie, did we push that back to 2025 doing?
Yeah. So there's an overall study that LATS is going to provide for the entire length of 170. So that's the one that you were referencing. So from the 46th Circle all the way to Boundary Street here, they'll look at that entire piece. The efforts, though, that we're doing on the individual projects.
1 second.
Yeah. I feel like I'm online.
Sound of freedom. All right, thank you.
So they're not wasted. Those will be taken into consideration and compiled in that bigger overall study. So there's a few different areas along 170 that we're looking at. And again, whoever is chosen to do that study, they'll take those bits and pieces that have already been done and use that for the ultimate overall study.
Okay.
Then, oh goodness, one last, I had one other thought in my head and I lost it, so apologize.
Probably the noise jar.
Yeah. Yes.
Any questions? Yes, Craig?
The 278 from Argent down to South Carolina 170.
Yes,
You
sir.
said you sort of, I'm going to use a term, you put a mini hold on that particular aspect?
Yes.
When are you going to be able to come to us and give us some?
Do a presentation on that? I mean, we could do an interim presentation. Really, we're not talking about really expansion. There's already 6 lanes on 278, so we're not talking about necessarily an expansion there. We're looking at access management and some improvements just in and around that corridor. So it will. We're ready to present on that. I just wanted to hold off on that piece because in and around Palmer Grace, I think there's going to be some additional improvements that we need to look at a little bit farther down the road. So just so that we don't run into the same thing that we're doing with 170, completing that study and then having to do an update immediately, we'll just hold on that study for right now and then we'll progress on that one. So it should be done sometime before the end of the year, I would think.
So you're not, at this particular time, you're not considering making the section from 170 to Argent 6 lanes, is that correct?
Well, that's part of the overall triangle project, but yeah, I mean, that is part of the overall scope, but we don't have any funding for that as of this time period, so we won't have funding for that until we would go out for sales tax or there would be some kind of federal grant process that we would go through. So we're close to finalizing that project. It's just that we're probably delaying it by about 6 months. So I would think sometime before the end of the year, we're ready to present on that.
AECom did the study, and they did it in a near-term, intermediate term, and long-term. And the long-term is taking it to 6 lanes. But the dollars aren't there. The dollars are something to the tune of $90 to $100 million to be able to do it.
Right.
So we're starting off doing the near-term, which was like $3 million, which came from combination of Jasper County, Hardeeville, and Beaufort County. And the update will help look at other intersections in that section to see if there's more that has to be done while we're out of contract in the next 2 or 3 months.
I'd certainly be interested in hearing what the current traffic and the horizon year as far as long-term is
Absolutely.
concerned.
Right,
And this is a state road, right?
it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, that's the purpose behind the corridor study is to show that. So again, the idea on delaying it is just a temporary delay so that we can make sure that with the development that we're seeing or that we're seeing being proposed in Hardyville and Jasper is accounted for properly in the overall study.
Study was done, I think, what, 3 years ago, Jenny?
It was finished 3 years ago, so a lot of the data is really 4 or 5 years.
Correct.
2019
Old.
was
Yeah.
our original study on 170.
Yeah, so that's, and a lot has changed in terms of travel and shopping patterns since then, which will definitely affect
Yep.
traffic movement.
It was like 44,000 ADT at 270, 278 and 170. And it decreased as you went towards Oldfield down to about, I think, 28,000, something like
I think that's
that.
correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So the
I think
update's obviously necessary.
And I think we've seen that change over the course of the last 2 years. So again, that's one of the things that we made sure of is to go out and grab those, the traffic counts at each one of those intersections prior to school getting out.
Well, there
So-
doesn't seem to be a capacity issue on that section from 170 to I-95.
And there's, when you look at the overall, it's when you consider the growth for the 20-year horizon, as well as what we're seeing right now on Argent. So the reason that particular piece of the corridor isn't over capacity at this point is so many people are using Argent, but having traveled Argent on a pretty regular basis at Shortcut and really the backup from Argent is pretty tremendous in the mornings. I think I was there at 7:30 in the morning this last week on a Tuesday, and we were backed up past Shortcut. So and some of that will be addressed again in the near-term project. We're converting that single left to a dual left coming off of Argent onto 170. So again, adding capacity at that intersection to help that clear out.
I think that will make a major difference.
Yeah, and we don't have that, we will work to make sure that the contractor focuses in on that area as kind of a first phase of that project. Because again, primarily that's striping and signal work, so that's a pretty quick fix to be able to take care of Argent.
Okay, any additional questions? Thank you much, Eric.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like my turn to talk a little bit. I've been advising everybody that the CTC had talked about having a statewide meeting, of which they did on 5 April, and I attended it, and it was attended by the majority of the chairmen from the CTCs around the state and some of the different districts as well. Some of the things that I noted changed was that we went from, at one point in time, it was down to 20 self-administered CTCs. It's up to 27 at this point in time, which leaves 19 that DOT takes care of. Let's see. I found it very interesting when making comparisons of gasoline taxes. Georgia's gasoline taxes is 31.2 cents on gasoline and 35 cents on diesel. The South Carolina is 28.75, and North Carolina is 40.5. So North Carolina's gas tax is the highest in the region. And projections, our funding source, our gas tax, back in fiscal year 18, we were receiving $75 million in gasoline tax. The projection this year is $110 million that's being divided between the CTCs. And the projection for fiscal year 24 is $114 million. Of the 46 counties, there's only 14 that would qualify as donors. and Beaufort County is one of those. I'll tie this a little bit into, I'll wait and talk about apportionment in a little bit. The day was, it was a full day of meetings, and a couple things that came about that I wasn't quite surprised in, but I was surprised at the dollar amount that we were having available for spending on DOT projects. Back in 2009, DOT was getting only $1 billion. In 2022, they're somewhere around $4.5 billion that they're being able to put on bridge, roads, and everything else, construction. Interstate widening gets a sizable amount, as well as resurfacing and bridges are the three hot button items. As we heard the Neva talk a little bit about CMRB, which is cement modified recycled base. The state has had an enormous issue with it. As Brian has talked about the issues with cement and the cement being available, well, it's creating an enormous problem to use in CMRB. The dollar amount they have had out to bid and ready to go to work on was twice the amount of concrete cement that they have available to use throughout the state. So they've had a major slowdown because of it. The other thing which come out, I use the military expression, Lima Charlie, loud and clear, was the ability of, Leland Colvin, who is the deputy engineer for construction, talked at length about the fact that they hold twice a year meetings with the asphalt companies. And back whenever Act 41 was being passed, Act 41 is gasoline sales tax, which went from 0 to 12 additional cents in gasoline taxes. They had been talking with the number of contractors, which there's only 15 asphalt plants in South Carolina all total. So it makes it kind of difficult, and the pricing has went up significantly because demand is greater than and the money's there, so they're not bothering putting more asphalt plants in the state. They're basically just raising their price on us, and so they're trying to grab that bull by the horns, and they had given them the lead that this was coming, but the contractors haven't ramped up to basically add additional paving plants as well as paving teams. So it's a problem around the state, to the fact that I had a call this past week asking if we were spending the $5.8 million that we received in this year's budget, in which I responded, yes, we have plans, it's in the works as we speak. I was amazed at the number of counties that were having problems spending the money that the legislature had given us to the 100 or 500 million or 250 million that they'd given us, and the ability to get contracts in place to spend it. So I was really quite surprised the issues that the state's facing. And it's not just, we're on the positive side of doing that. One of the most important things, and I'm doing this quite intentionally, I'm saving this tidbit for last. I walked up to the secretary to talk to her about a number of different items, and she looked up to me and said, Mr. Gordon, Beaufort County, you have one of the best CTC programs in the state. And I said, thank you very much, ma'am. And she said, I'd like to also tell you that Beaufort County roads, and she says, I monitor this constantly. Beaufort County roads are #1 in condition in the state. And you guys ought to get a lot of credit for that. So the programs we started 5 years ago and continue on is paying dividends, and the work we do with our district maintenance engineer helps significantly as well. So the committee gets attaboys, not all craps. We get attaboys for this. The committee's doing a great job, and I wanted you all to hear that and know that that's taking place. So thank you for your good work. Any questions on that? Okay, the next item is, when I went to officer candidate school, I used to stomp on the floor because we were going to have a test question, and what they were telling us, this was a test question. Well, this is a test question. I brought it up 2 months ago, and I'm bringing it up again. You all, by district, are by what has been put in place by prior CTCs, the programs we have in place for less than 500 ADT. We hired an engineer to take care of developing that program for us. But we, as a CTC, you all have $500,000 to spend on state secondaries that go from 500 to 2,000 ADT in your districts. And in the July meeting, if you show up with nothing, you get nothing. But the idea is to have it in a week beforehand, so we can put it on the agenda, any slides, photos, or any information you have on streets that should be, hits that criteria. I've also reached out to Elizabeth and said if she has any that she's aware of that we don't have on our program, whether it's less than 500 or our paving programs, our 5-year program, to look at that and add to the list. So I realize I'll give you all an example. I live in Beaufort, and when I look at my district, and I had a new copy of it made again today for me, when my district starts at Berkeley Hall, 278 stops it and goes down to and crosses over just a little bit into Hilton Head Plantation. I virtually have no state routes that are going to qualify from 50 to 2,000. And I would bet that you probably have very few as well, Craig.
We have 5 state roads.
Yep. And the Hilton Head is going to wind up in the same situation. So the rest of you are going to be fighting for your districts. So you're accountable to knock out your roads and have them ready for presentation, pictures, and condition, and sales pitch on how far starting and stopping where it's supposed to be. And I'm sure Brian will help anybody if you have questions, as well as I'd be glad to help anybody if you have questions. Okay? All right. So mote it be. You'll find in your packet on item C what our apportionment is for this year. Apportionment is, I think, $2.6 million, and we get roughly $385,000 back in donor money. We do not have to spend donor dollars on state projects. That's not a requirement. They can go strictly, that $385,000 goes to our projects. But we have $2.6 million, of which we have to spend 33% on state routes again. So we have that pretty much in the works with our program, but I'm just was providing that as information more than anything else, as an update as to the dollars we got. Any questions on that? Okay. Mr. Glover, you're up next, talking about the St. Helena drainage study that was done.
St. Helena drainage. Where am I? Okay. The stormwater management is going pretty good on St. Helena. There is no problem. Well, there's minor problems, but according to my brother, the drainage is, St. Helena has, let me see if I can do this correct. St. Helena has very low drainage problems today. I'll put it that way. Okay. He and I went through the last 3 years, 4 years, and try to clean up all the drainage. As long as the county keep the drainage clean, we shouldn't have any problem. The only problem that he foresees is sea level rise, which should be, they projected around 2050 that there will be a problem with sea level rise. That's the scenario that they have. Other than that, the drainage on St. Helena looks pretty good. Has very, according to my brother anyway, he said it looks darn good. But we have to keep the drainage clean, and the county has to do that. So that's about the scenario.
Okay. Do you have many people in attendance at the meeting?
I was not there at the meeting, by the way. I was having my eyes taken care of. But there were pretty good attendance at the meeting, yes.
Good. All righty, any questions of John? Hearing none, we'll move on. I put the item on the agenda, CTC documents, and that's kind of a nebulous term. But I asked Sierra, and which she did, to send out to everybody a listing of the documents you need to be effective in your districts. And it's about 8 items all total. And I did that just as a recollect to make certain you had everything. And if you don't, you need to see Sierra after the meeting or give her a call after you've checked off the list to make certain you have them all. If you don't remember getting the email, see her after the meeting and she'll make certain that you get it. Okay? Next item is CTC website. And I really want to thank the people that take care of the TV work and all that stuff for us, I guess is the right way to describe it. We made some changes. We're trying to keep our email or our website for the CTC up to date. And so one of the things which we just had accomplished, which really works out nice, as you know, all our meetings are recorded. And we now have it set up so that we're able to go to our CTC website or web page, and you can click on any of the meetings that we have rather than searching throughout the whole Beaufort County website. This way it makes it real clean to get to, and you can see it, and it really works out quite conveniently. So if you need to go back and follow up on anything, it's now an easy step for you all to take. Okay, any questions of me? Treasurer's report, Jim?
A lot of what I wanted to highlight was some of the key projects that Brian mentioned. Particularly, they were the larger projects that we have going, and they're the ones that we're really pushing to get completed by the end of the fiscal year. So Brian did cover most of what I wanted to talk about, but resurfacing, we should be able to, if things work out as planned, be able to complete the DOT routes by the end of the fiscal year. County roads will follow after that, and similar for preservation. That's been a lot of that's been done, and we should be moving forward on those and should be able to meet our commitment for spending for the fiscal year. I don't have really anything in addition. Those were the key projects. That's where a lot of the dollars were that we had been spending, that we were targeting to complete by the end of the year.
One of the things which bears some major importance to us and it was discussed during the CTC meeting by Secretary Hall. And the topic is, if we gave our dollars that we get to, and we didn't pick any streets or do anything on state routes, and we gave it to DOT and had them do, they immediately, once they have a project lined up, they take commitment on their dollars. The understanding by the previous director of the CTC program made the stand previously that if we have dollars committed and under contract and we haven't spent them by the end of the fiscal year, we're in jail for the dollar amount. So of the $1 million we're supposed to be spending, if we haven't spent, we've spent 750,000 out of the 200, or out of the million. We had 250, even though it was committed. In the past, Joe Sturm made the statement, "You're in trouble because you haven't spent it in the fiscal year," and it became a major bone of contention with everybody. And Secretary Hall said twice during the meeting, if the dollars are committed and under contract, you have no issues with us. If it happens to run over, we encourage you to get it done within the fiscal year constraint time span. But if something happens beyond your control that it does go on, we will not be giving you any issues with it. So I was glad to hear that. In the past, it hasn't been that way. Okay. I will now go to public comment. Is there anybody who wants to have a public comment? And number 9 is my comments. My comment is going to be one item and one item only today. I am going to appoint Arthur Hanman as our secretary to work with Sierra on meeting minutes and so on. And I would ask that whenever we're making adjustments to our CTC transportation plan for this year, Eric, to add under the one sentence there where the secretary is now being appointed along with the treasurer by the chairman. Okay? All right. Seeing no further additional business to come before this board, meeting adjourned.
This is color coded.